Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Four Corners Network. This is Territory Talk. I am one of your hosts, pro wrestler Kris Rex, alongside my tag team partner in everything, John Punn. John, how are we doing today? I know we missed a week. We did miss
Yep,
the
yep.
week of doing episodes due to some personal issues, and I also, between editing this podcast for 4 days a week and doing, between work and life, we just didn't get around to doing it this week. So we apologize to all those who do watch, and
Yes, I do apologize. I personally, I had a death in the family. I didn't want to miss these podcasts, but I just had things to
yeah,
attend to.
we tried to
And
make it, to come up with days. It just didn't work out. But
yeah,
here we
our
are
schedules
now.
just didn't mix. But
Yep.
here we are, and we got Tales from the Territory CWF today to talk about.
Yes. And before we get into that, I want to thank our audience, which has been growing by in great numbers
Yeah.
in just a month. This will be our fourth week here. Um,
hmm
well, third to fourth week. Yeah, our fourth week actually.
Fourth week,
And
three different
three
podcasts,
different
and they're all
podcasts,
growing.
and we're starting. It's our fourth week, and the Four Corners podcast is hitting the 200 views on Facebook on our last episode, and still going. I mean, Territory Talk is starting to get to those numbers. We're starting to do great on the video, not so much on the audio. I'll be honest with you guys, not so much on the audio, but we'll still put out the audio, and we'll see where that picks up throughout the next couple weeks. But mainly, this has been a video podcast, which it's been working for us so far, which is the complete opposite of what we thought. But here we are, and like you said,
And we have to thank all of you for that.
100%
Without
each.
you guys, we probably wouldn't still be here after 4 weeks. But we appreciate each and every one of you for tuning in, listening, watching, however you're doing it. Thank you to each and every one of you.
Yep, and because of you, like Pun said, we are here today, and we are here to talk about the CWF Championship of Wrestling from Florida, which was a pretty important promotion in the territory days. I mean, there's been loads of talent that has come through that Florida territory, and we're gonna dive into a little bit of the CWF, and just to name some talent: Dusty Rhodes, Hulk Hogan,
The Briscoes,
the Briscoes, Brian Blair, Ed the Graham family. I
the
mean,
Kerns,
the Kerns,
Steve Kern, Bob Roop,
Bob. I
you
mean,
know,
Kevin Sullivan.
yeah,
A lot of people came through that CWF
Handsome
territory.
Adonis.
Yeah.
Handsome Adonis came from there. Blackjack Mulligan.
Yep.
A lot of big names. A lot of big names came from the Florida territory.
And on this panel, on this episode, we had Jerry Briscoe, Kevin Sullivan, Brian Blair, Steve Kern, and Bob Roop. And it was kind of a like the last episode, a slow start to it, where we both were like, okay,
Yeah.
this may be, one to, not talk too much about. But we wound up being some stories that we took from here that kind of blew our minds and gave us some insight and made us question a few things.
Yeah.
And one of those stories is the start of Hulk Hogan, Terry Bollea at the time. Who was in a rock and roll band, and he was a pretty big guy. Still,
Yep, 6'8", 300 plus pounds,
and he
and
was
he was
hitting the
just a
gym.
fan of shows.
Yes, he was a fan that would go every Wednesday to the shows, and he'd go to all the shows. And he was in the gym like before becoming a wrestler, so he already had the body, and that's why they were looking at him because they seen him in the crowd and looked and like, who is this guy? Like he doesn't look like the average fan from Florida at that time. So, um, come to find
He
out,
looked like a beach bum. He
yeah,
looked like a
he
beach bum.
did. He
Long
looked
blonde
like a beach
hair,
bum.
big bulky tanned man. You know,
And,
rock and roller.
and he's obviously a fan of the business. They came to a bar where he played at to come see him, and they see him, and he's in these platform shoes, and he looks like the star of the band, but he's not the lead in the band. but he has that presence about him, and you can tell already with the bleach blonde hair, the tan. He was something larger than life, and they met with him and set up a meeting through the bartender, to try to get him interested in joining pro wrestling, and it's something he actually wanted to do. He asked him, how can I get into the business? And they set up a workout with him, Punn. And just to give a brief backstory on how these CWF workouts went, what they did is a lot of people would like to question whether wrestling was real or not. So to keep kayfabe, they would invite people to open workouts, and when they'd come in, they'd stretch the shit out of them. They'd hurt them. They'd make them see that wrestling is not real. So next time you think about crossing that guardrail, you might want to think twice. The next time you want to pick a fight with one of us, you might want to think twice. So
I think in the training aspect of it, it was mainly for when they're back in their regular lives and people see all the bruises on their bodies. People are gonna be like, "Oh, I thought wrestling was fake," and they'll be like, "It's not. I thought it was too, but
yeah,
look at me.
yeah,
They're stretching me. It hurts. This isn't fake." And that was to keep the kayfabe of the business, to see who they break and who keeps coming back for more.
yep,
And they weeded out. They weeded out a lot. They weeded out a lot of weak. But people like Steve Kern, Gerald Briscoe, Bob Roop, and then the infamous Terry Bollea, came in and they put him right in the ring with Matsuda.
yes, who is
legendary Japanese wrestler. They put him in the ring for training. They had him being stretched, and then all of a sudden Matsuda locks him in a leg ankle lock and just wrenches until you hear a snap.
and he broke Terry Bollea's ankle, the future Hulk Hogan, and most people would not come back after that. He went to the doctors. He broke his ankle. What did he do? He kept calling and trying to show up to the gym, asking when he can come back, and they told you can't come back. Like that's it. And he was just persistent. He wanted to do this, and that's when they seen, okay, this guy is something different. Yeah, he's something different. We literally broke his ankle, and he's ready to come back.
They finally let him back, and he became a big star in Florida while he was still green. And then when the territory ended, he became the Hulk Hogan that the world knows today. Now, Kris,
yeah,
what do you think would have happened if Hogan never went back?
Though that's the question I was just about to ask you.
If Hogan, the state of wrestling, what we had, say, from 98, we'll start from Attitude Era, NWO DX, from 98 to today, do you think a lot of this in the state of pro wrestling would be the way it
we gotta go further back to 98. We gotta go back to 84, 83 when Hulkamania started taking over. I mean,
that's true.
That's the reason why we had the 98. Would wrestling have even lasted till 1998 had Hulk Hogan not come back to training?
That's true. Would Vince have been able to take all the territories?
Because remember, because of Hulkamania, wrestling became big. Because of WWF and WrestleMania and Hulkamania, wrestling became big, which helped usher in the 90s. And being able to have pop culture.
You got me there. You got me. You're right. Go back to the 80s. Go back to the 80s. But still, I think, I don't know if we would have became wrestlers.
Exactly. If the whole landscape of wrestling
didn't go back after breaking his ankle.
The whole landscape of wrestling would have changed.
Mm-hmm.
The whole landscape.
And actually, come to think about it, it could have changed for the better. What if wrestling started to be, based on the smaller guys, because these big guys get injured quickly? Hey, wrestling could have been, a big 180 starting from back then.
What if wrestling just stayed territorial? Because without Hulkamania and WrestleMania and Vince McMahon, the territories would have never died.
Okay, so now we talk about a green Hulk Hogan. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about a green Kevin Sullivan. Big baby face when he started down in the Florida area. And then all of a sudden, he decides to go heel. And what does he do? He starts a cult-like faction.
Yep, at a time in Florida where there was this satanic phenomenon going on, pandemonium about Satanists and cults, and he comes up with the right time to do a Satanist cult gimmick, and that's the best way to, yeah, like, you're gonna fuck with people's feelings, you're gonna fuck with their
Yeah.
emotions, man. I think
The
it was
people
money.
that will the people that supported that satanic organization loved this group. The people that were scared of it were scared of Kevin Sullivan's Army of Darkness. And
Yeah,
he brought in the right people. He brought in Bob Roop, changed his character, changed his hair, changed his name. He brought in a green Luna Vachon,
mm-hmm.
shaved her head to match Bob Roop's head, to have like a Frankenstein and Bride of Frankenstein thing going.
Yeah,
I mean, the group just looked evil,
yeah,
looked demonic. And for that era of time, to have this and grow as big as it got, I'm surprised Eddie Graham let that go by. Let that storyline go, because there were things that he didn't let go by, and that was
yeah.
one of them that even Kevin Sullivan said he was surprised he was able to do it.
Yeah, they went pretty far, even to, like I said, keeping kayfabe in public, going out with the makeup on and the robes on, and you see them at a grocery store, and you see these guys that look like the devil. They look like little devil worshippers, and I think at that time it was it was so money, man. At that time, and I think even today you could pull it off. I don't think you could pull it off as well as it was back
No,
then, because people were so
it's only
scared.
because it's only because the art of kayfabe is gone. It
Yeah.
is. If we had kayfabe like we had back then, today, a lot of this would still be able to go on. If me and you did a satanic group go out in our robes, people are going to believe what they're seeing on mainstream television is for real. But
Yeah.
kayfabe died, as the Attitude Era ended. So did kayfabe, and that's why a lot of this real shit can't go on anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, you're 100% right. But Kevin Sullivan's character, because of that stable, helped bring in, like you said, not only the core guys, but even when he went to WCW, his stable
Yeah.
was the similar thing. I mean, it was more gimmicky and it was more cartoony, and which I understand you at that time wrestling was family oriented in the early 90s, but even at that, he had the Dungeon of Doom, and it was still the same kind of gimmick, just toned down.
That was his claim to fame. So, I see that. And it worked well. I think it worked better in the territory days than WCW, but it did keep him fresh. And they kept changing it up in WCW. Things did change. He had his own matches with it. So it was pretty dope.
Yeah, Kevin Sullivan also is very intelligent mind in the wrestling business, especially on the creative end. You have to be to create this whole thing, this because it takes balls to sit there and say, okay, everyone in Florida is going crazy over satanic pandemonium and this whole, oh, we're scared of Satanists and cults. I'm gonna take that and I'm gonna work on people's fucking fear. When some
Mm-hmm.
people would be like, I don't know if I want to touch that subject, he went full religion, bro. Religion is like one of those things where it's like, you don't know if you want to go down that route, like.
Yep. Don't want to touch that.
But he,
Yeah.
he did, and he made
And
it work.
honestly, I think if the whole Kevin Sullivan and Benoit situation didn't happen with women, I think his career would have been much better than the way it ended during that situation.
Yeah,
Because I think Kevin Sullivan, even if it would have been a promoter, writer, whatever, that did halt anything that he was doing when women left him for Benoit. And then the whole storyline being put on TV and
well,
all that.
you have to remember where did Kevin
Yeah, he
Kevin
was
Sullivan
okay
come
with it.
from? It.
Yes, he was okay with it, but I just feel that ruined his career. That ruined his career, and it made Benoit move into superstardom. That started his rise up,
Yeah.
and I feel that fucked up one of the greatest minds of the business, because Kevin Sullivan did
Well,
have
it
one of
wasn't
those
only
minds.
that. If you remember the match with Brian Pillman he had, where Brian Pillman broke kayfabe and was like, I respect you, Booker, man. Because
Yeah,
Kevin
yeah.
Sullivan was the Booker at the time,
Was the Booker, yeah.
and it was like, and it's like, I think at that point, like, I don't know, he just had problems with people, and sadly, because of that, sometimes that could be the only reason your career goes down is because you had a few problems that people from the outside don't understand, weren't involved in, and now your career was fucked because of it. Not fucked. I'm not gonna say his career was fucked, but your
Yeah,
career
it's just
dwindles
slowed
down.
down.
Yeah, it dwindles down.
Yes, slowed down.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Let's talk about another one, probably the biggest rivalry to happen in CWF history. You know, it's when they took personal, real life happenings and brought it into the ring again. And again, something that was, pushing the boundaries when it came to territorial wrestling back then.
Yeah.
So you have Steve Kern's father, who just returned from being a two-time prisoner of war. Once during World War II, and then once for 7.5 years during Vietnam. So Steve Kern himself came up with the idea for this storyline. At this time, Eddie Graham was away in Australia, and he knew Eddie Graham wouldn't run with the storyline. So he was happy. He brought it to Mike Graham. Mike Graham said yes, and then he goes to Bob Roop. He wanted Bob Roop, Mr. Olympia. He was, All American at this time.
Yeah.
Also a former veteran, to be the one to call out his father, for being a coward. He said, any man who gets locked up twice and becomes a prisoner of war is no war hero to me, is a coward.
Let me
And
tell
that
you,
was
bro.
it.
Let me tell you something. When we were watching this, and he said that hit me, bro. With my father being a veteran, my grandfather being veteran, and most of the people in my life that I've met in my life being veterans, I was like, oh, I hate this guy. Like, I don't even want to know the rest of this story. Like, I hate this guy. Like, yeah, it's because that's that another thing. Like we talked about with religion and the satanical, bro.
Military?
Veterans, trash talking veterans,
Military
bro.
America. You know, you
Bro,
know. So
that hits
that was
everyone in the heart.
racist. And then the way Steve Kern just burst through the locker room, knocked over the camera, it was like, this can't be real. I mean, this can't be part of the show. You
Yeah.
know, beat the living snot out of Bob Roop. You know,
Yeah,
that was
and I
dope.
mean they made it he was shoot punching him, like, and they were okay
Mhm.
with it because they let it go off of emotion. It's kind of like that whole method acting thing, doing it on the fly of just go with the emotion. He doesn't know exactly what he's gonna say in that promo. He doesn't know
Yeah,
exactly what he's gonna say,
yeah.
but once he said it, that he's not a hero, he's a coward. Boom, raw emotion,
Then
and
that led
that's what makes wrestling awesome when you get that raw
that
emotion.
led to that crowd just getting involved,
That's why
every step of the
I'm not a
way.
fan of the scripted promo thing, bro. That's why the
Yeah,
promos today, I'm not a fan of that
me
whole
too.
scripted. I don't want to know what
Those
you're gonna
guys,
say about me. All right, if it's something you think is going overboard, come to me. But I don't want to know exactly what you're going to say. I want to come out with my promo or what I'm gonna do next based off of what you said.
the whole time I was wrestling, I was the same way. Even whether it was backyard or pro, I couldn't plan or script a promo. Yes, I would have an idea of what I want to say, depending on
General
the
idea.
storyline I'm in, who I'm wrestling. But to sit there and script out, I'm going to say this first and that and this and that. There's no way, especially with the way my mind works. My mind is,
Yeah,
all over the place. I
yo,
might
it's
want
like
to
I
talk
say.
about one
I
thing
say
first, and then I'm
my
talking about a whole different thing.
Yeah, I feel you. I'm the same way. My mind runs a million miles a minute. Like it's like, okay,
Hmm.
I can't plan a promo,
I
bro.
can't script a promo.
I can't.
I could book a show. I could
We
match
we tried it
out a
once.
show match by match by match by match.
We
what's
did.
gonna happen, who's gonna win, you know. But a
We did
promo,
script a
nah.
promo once, and it just didn't work out because it was scripted.
Yeah,
Once we just started
yeah.
saying, okay, we're going to take the basis of this script and say what we want now. I
And I think
remember that. The
that was
snob.
the cause and effect
Yes.
promo that we did.
Yes. And I was sitting
Yeah,
there typing it out, and you were bugging me not to type it out. And I was like, no, we got to
I
be
did.
different. We got to give these promoters so I let them know, we can come
And then you know, yeah,
prepared.
it was a good promo, you know,
But
but
what?
it sounded like it was scripted. It sounded
Yeah.
like it was rehearsed. And that was what I didn't like about when we just go off the top of our dome. It doesn't sound like we memorized it. It doesn't sound like we read off a script.
Yep.
You know, I liked it. I liked how we played off their name and whatnot. But like I said, it sounded like Chris Benoit monotone. You know, we were talking like, you know, we were just going off what we had
Yeah.
in our head. You know, and that's where I think we were wrong with that promo. We could have had the guidelines of using that, but I think scripting it, and we never did it again. You know,
Well, that's that.
We learned from
And that's the
our mistakes.
difference in like the territory days. It was just go on the fly, bro. Go,
Yeah.
get that reaction like they did in Memphis. Real life issues equals money, man.
Mhm.
And man, this
I guess the
feud.
territory, all territories seem to do. Every episode we've seen has talked about a real life storyline, promos, real life happening that
Going
they
into
brought
the ring. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
you had the eye gouge thing with fucking Jerry Jarrett, that the whole trying to take over the company thing, you know,
Yeah.
and they brought that into the ring.
And you know
All
what's
right,
funny? I'll tell you, I've been playing the WWE 2K22. It's one of my
I gotta
favorite
get back
games to
into
play.
that. That's gonna be the only game I play from now on.
So I'm playing through the My Rise thing, and the female one. I just started it, and Beth Phoenix tells you here in WWE we settle everything in the ring. And when we were just now talking about the whole settle everything in the ring type thing, it's like WWE does that in their video games, and like when you think about it, a video game is kind of like the territory days. It's like
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
like you have a backstage issue and and then you're gonna go wrestle a match to settle that issue. It like it just the territories were just so like outlaw. It was just kind of like the Wild West. Um,
Yeah.
Steve Kern even broke in with the way that Hulk Hogan broke in. And he was kind of closer to the family because of him growing up with Mike Graham, Eddie's
Yeah, he
son.
thought he was gonna have it easy.
He thought he was going to have it easy because he had a good relationship with Eddie Graham, almost like a father-son relationship because of what happened to his father. And he thought it was going to be easy. And the same thing happened with him. And he had to work out with Matsuda. And I mean, he made it through. And he wound up becoming one of the stars in CWF. So it showed that their way of training and it's kind of the territory way of doing things it had an effect. There was a positive to it. Things are vastly changed from how they were in the territory days, but there was a reason they broke you in that way. It was kind of like they taught you there was one, respect for the business. Two, they taught you what you're gonna need to be a star, and they had you build thick skin.
Yeah, and that's exactly what happened. Vince McMahon asked Kern and Briscoe, where should we put developmental? And they put it in Florida.
Yeah.
And then look at the stars that started coming out of there when you have Big E and Batista and Cena coming out of FCW.
Yeah, well, they came more out of OVW, but with FCW, I mean, you had early Seth Rollins, which FCW wound up becoming what we know now is NXT. And it's that Florida territory feel with NXT. When you watch NXT,
yeah, and that's exactly it. Yeah,
it's that Florida. It's a territory feel. It's an indie feel, and it has so much history where they are.
Yep, and Florida did pave the way for where wrestling went today. It
now,
sure did.
Why don't you tell us a story? Now, why don't you tell us the story about
Yes,
there's this plane ride.
Eddie.
It seems like the territories and planes and helicopters, any flying objects don't go well together. They don't. Maybe wrestlers
Yeah,
and planes and flying objects just don't go well together.
yeah, it seems like not, especially in those days.
Especially when you mix alcohol. It's
Yeah. So they're at their matches for the day, and Eddie Graham has flying his little passenger plane, and he loads up a couple of the wrestlers. I know Steve Kern was the one telling the story. He was in the plane. During the matches, Eddie Graham picks up his girlfriend. He's having drinks with his girlfriend. Ooh, excuse me. All right. Now after the matches, they load up. Eddie Graham's wobbling as they get into the plane. They load up in the plane. All right. He don't put on no headset. He don't call no airplane towers. He don't do nothing. They just take off. Eddie Graham and his girlfriend are in the front seat. It's Kern and Group and I think one other person in the back. And, they start flying. They take off. And all of a sudden, it's the end of the day at Disney World. And what does Disney World do every night?
They always do a spectacular fireworks display right over the castle. It's beautiful. I've seen it myself. What a moment it is. Moment ruined.
Steve Kern is sitting in the plane thinking, oh, Eddie Graham is just going to show his girlfriend, the fireworks display from the sky. I would think that too.
Yeah.
Until all
it's
of a sudden,
romantic thing to do, right?
The plane just nosedives straight into the fireworks. Now Steve Kern, he's holding on for dear life, and Eddie Graham is flying the plane like what you see in a fucking movie, dipping, diving through the fireworks.
Like fucking Top Gun.
Having fun, still haven't called nobody, knew nothing about this. Gets through the fireworks and starts to head towards Tampa Bay International Airport.
Without notifying anybody.
Without notifying them, still has no headphones on, so if they're notifying him, he doesn't know. All right, drunk, little ass passenger plane. All right, they see a runway that they're about to clear and land on. As they're about to hit the pavement, Steve Kern looks through the cockpit, and what does he see? An airliner landing on the same runway, a plane 5 times the size it is, opposite of them. Eddie Graham takes the plane, steers it into the grass, gets surrounded by cops and security and FAA and all this shit. They stop the plane. Steve Kern opens up the door but doesn't drop the steps. And this is what's funny. Eddie Graham is a fucking gimmick to he fucking walks out and knowing the steps weren't put down, he takes a step out the plane, takes a wicked bump, starts acting like he don't know where he's at. I was just in the ring. What happened? I was just in the ring. How did I get here in Tampa Bay Airport? Security's trying to help him now. All the people that surround him is helping him, taking care of him. Steve Kern says he gets off the plane. He just kisses the floor and thanks God he's alive while everybody is tending to Eddie Graham, who's now pretending to be fucked up. So he don't get don't get arrested.
Live the gimmick, bro. Live the gimmick.
Yeah,
Kayfabe.
Live the gimmick.
Shit, he just got out of pretty much federal prison charges, bro.
Eventually the alcohol made him lose all his friends and everything, and that's ended up also how he ended up losing his life and all. But Eddie Graham was a pioneer for wrestling, and did set up Florida for success and bring out a lot of major talent from that territory. That changed the course of wrestling.
And I think that's a great way to end this episode, Punn.
Yeah.
Championship Wrestling from Florida is history. There's a lot of history there. Like you said, we wouldn't have NXT, we wouldn't have FCW, we wouldn't have the stars we're seeing on TV today without Championship Wrestling from Florida.
Hulk Hogan.
And we wouldn't have had Hulk Hogan. There would be no Hulkamania. On behalf of John Punn and myself, I'd like to thank each and every one of you for tuning in to Territory Talk here on the Four Corners Network. You can find us on all social media platforms above Punn's head at Four Corners Net. That's at number 4 Corners Net. You'll be able to see all of our shows, not only this show, Territory Talk, but the Four Corners podcast and the Four Corners Rewind, where we do a watch along of pretty much random topics. You never know what we're gonna do that week. We've done the hardcore matches. All right, we've done cruiserweight matches. I mean, it's a
We
fun
have a lot
time.
of things planned and lined up.
We do have things planned and lined up. We're starting to get a little bit more organized now as the show goes on. But again, you can find us on the social media platforms. You can find our shows on YouTube and Facebook. Again, thanks to each and every one of you for tuning in and help making this show a success. In just a month, we're doing amazing, I think, for just a month. As always, be excellent to each other and keep supporting pro wrestling.